Authorities and regulators really are demanding increased disclosure of costs because they realise that it's an important part of the operations and overall strategy of a pension scheme, and costs matter because they have such a significant impact on the savings vehicle over the long term. Schemes are realising that this is an important part of their governance framework, and it's something they have to do if they're going to be deemed accountable. Now, this isn't something to worry about, but you need to be familiar with the fact that this is the regulatory direction of travel, and this is something you should do to get ahead of the game. This pension scheme has a strong focus on and really prioritises its governance framework. In particular, the quality and control around the data that it maintains in-house. And the reason it undertook the exercise was to get a better handle on some of the undisclosed fees that the scheme was incurring. The investment committee were well aware of these costs being incurred, but due to poor market practice when it comes to cost reporting, they really struggled to accurately quantify them. They're excited having gone through the exercise because they understand the costs, and it put them in the position where they could take the first step towards an accurate value for money assessment. And given the regulatory direction, it's a really smart move. They learned several things. One thing they learned was that costs can be complicated and slightly complex to unravel, but it's certainly worth the time and effort invested in order to understand them and effectively manage these costs. With better cost reporting, what it's enabled this scheme to do is better communicate with its stakeholders, including its asset managers, investment consultants, other service providers, and also the trustee boards and the underlying members, showing what the costs are in relation to the investment strategy. One interesting thing they learned was that out of their active management strategies, the ones where we expect slightly higher management fees, transaction costs and performance fees, for these managers, the managers they were paying higher fees to were the ones that were yielding the greater returns net. Now, this is interesting because it shows that costs are not implicitly bad, but they need to be viewed in context with your other governance reporting, such as your performance reporting and your risk reporting. There are difficulties, one of them being the lack of a clear reporting standard for cost in the UK pension industry, and the fact that market practices historically have been quite poor. And this has led to some service providers being particularly hesitant to disclose cost categories, especially when we're asking for new information such as transaction cost and turnover, where the definitions aren't quite clear still. We've made strong progress in this area and building communication channels with service providers by establishing a standardised cost collection template, and this enables us to collect data in a consistent and comparable format between schemes. Going forward, given the size of the UK pension industry, what we really need is some sort of common disclosure standard. And I believe the FCA's initiative to create a common disclosure code is a really positive step, and that will help us gain greater transparency in the industry. The goal should really be to improve understanding. What you don't understand cannot be effectively managed. With greater transparency, schemes will have greater insights, will be able to make more informed decisions and ultimately achieve best possible outcomes for their members. I would say that looking at costs in isolation is very dangerous and potentially misleading. So what you need to do is look at the costs holistically and bring in the context from your other governance reporting. I would recommend start engaging with your service providers and start conversations with your peers on the subject matter so that you can really understand what you need to be looking at and what you should be doing. Follow industry developments and really be proactive. If you need more information on the subject, please contact the PLSA or CASBank and we'd be more than happy to help.